I want for you to want to be amazing and to feel amazing about what you're doing and who you are. And I want to feel that way as well. What if there are things we never had the opportunity to learn? We've all been to school or training, but there are things they never taught us that actually make a powerful difference in life. I'm here to share with you all the pieces you've been missing: mindset, health, success, and more. And we'll all learn together from guests along the way. We may not have learned it the traditional way, but oh my goodness, let's keep learning how to do things differently. OMG Teach Me crew, hello again. Today we are talking about something that I sort of have a love-hate relationship with, and that is the phrase, I am enough. And so I'm going to give you both sides of my feelings on this, because I don't want to say that this is not a phrase that is powerful, because it is. And at the same time, I want us to think a little bit more deeply, because sometimes when I hear this and I see it all over social media, I have sort of a mixed feeling about what this means. Okay, so dive in with me. And I have a special little addition to the episode today, because my wonderful friend, Jennifer Mulchandani, is the host of the M Word podcast. And she invited me and a few other business owners and entrepreneurs in our local area to come with her and watch the Barbie movie and then have a discussion about it. And so I will link the full episode. There were actually 2 episodes. I will link those episodes in the show notes if you'd like to go and listen to them. She has given me the clip that that kind of came about and created this episode. And so I'm going to add that in here so we can listen. So this is a clip from the M Word podcast where 4 of us we had just finished watching the Barbie movie. For me, it was the second time. For, I believe, one of the women, it was the first time, but the other 2 also the second time. And I kind of came out with it and said, this phrase, I am enough, bothers me. And so you'll hear us have a little discussion around that, and then I'll bring us back together and let's talk about it. How is the phrase, I am enough, going to be powerful for you? And what sort of thoughts do we maybe want to put aside to make sure that it really does mean something that is about worthiness and is about empowerment? So here we go. Have a listen.
But can I say, this is the second time I saw it, and what I saw this time and it bugged me was this whole I'm enough. That it was the Kens, I'm Knuff, I'm enough. And I wondered, I felt like it's sort of mocking, how, and here we are, a group of women. We've all met each other through a lot of strong women business groups. Absolutely. And we get together and we lift each other up. And it felt almost this mocking, I'm good enough, rah, rah. And that was, I didn't see that the first time, but this time it sort of irked me. It was poking fun at the Kens, saying that they were good enough, in a mocking kind of way.
So I sort of have an issue with the whole I am enough thing. And I'm going to struggle to put this into words. I feel on my own podcast like this is an episode coming. But
stay tuned.
I've never really loved the I am enough saying. Enough feels like
basic.
Low.
That's so male. Sorry.
Like the minimum.
Oh, that is the issue with hyper-masculinity.
Really say something.
However, I think that what Greta Gerwig was saying with that, all the guys going, I am enough. Men have always had such a lower bar than women. You could be any idiot and do well, and everyone accepts you for being the fabulous expert that you are. Yes. Whereas, as the mom character portrayed, we women have to constantly prove themselves. You could be a law school graduate of Harvard and the partner in a law firm, and you're still being doubted and challenged. And men can be basically a BA from college and they consider themselves an expert on everything. And in the media, they're portrayed that way. Right. I think that's what that was about.
A lot of it's ourselves, isn't it? I'm sorry, you go ahead.
So it's really interesting, again, only having male children and being also a woman of color as a Black American woman, because it was like, oh, I'm a white, beautiful blonde man, and I can come here and do anything. And but I can't, but I don't understand. And there is a concept of the shift of power. And I do think that the movie really delved into that, where wherever the power may be, in Barbie world, it was a female-centered power. In the real world, I don't know whether you realized it, ladies, but there is the patriarchy, and it exists. And guess what? It is trying hard not to crumble. But in terms of that, one of the problems with sexism, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg talked about that a lot. What she did is she had her career was made on showing how sexism in the law actually made life worse for men. So, for instance, one of the first cases that she did was about how a widower who wasn't afforded the same rights under the laws when his wife had died serving the country as women get when their husbands die. Right? So what she did is show men how sexism actually doesn't work for them. And that's how she started her career. And that's how that was when she was young.
Like
that was the baseline of the type of work that she did.
Now, we got off track for just a moment, so let me come back and allow Karen, one of the four of us, to wrap that little piece of the discussion up.
I think the point we were trying to get at is that the Barbie, Greta Gerwig is so brilliant, and she brings up all of these challenging issues, and she doesn't just bash the men. It is about female empowerment. It is about how the real world is full of patriarchy, but the solution is not to do to men what men have done to women.
Right.
It's to find a way for us to be equal.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, maybe you can tell even just from those few minutes, but we had a fantastic time chatting about all the different issues that come up from a movie like that really is fun, and at the same time really addressing some parts of society that you may or may not agree with our views. We may or may not agree with each other. It's so great to be able to discuss those things. And that's one of the reasons I had such a ball doing those 2 podcast episodes with those wonderful women. So I wanted you to hear that because I wanted you to hear that I do kind of have an issue with this phrase, I am enough. And if you are on social media, you will see it in some form or capacity. Now, I know there's a children's book, I Am Enough, that is fantastic. So you can have a look at that. Certainly, that is such a great idea to do a book in that way. And the problem that I have with this phrase sometimes is that I started seeing it on social media where maybe it was just kind of being used as, let's find a way to make each other feel good. And I feel really strongly about the fact that the thoughts in our heads matter and what's running around in our heads all the time matter. But if we're saying I am enough, like you heard in that clip, sometimes I think it's coming from a place of comparison. And let me explain what I mean by that. If we're just kind of flippantly talking about being enough, I think a lot of times in our heads, deep down, we're comparing ourselves to someone else that we look at and we see as prettier or smarter or more popular, just to give, some very high level things. And we're saying, well, they might be, insert adjective, prettier, more popular, whatever, more successful, whatever, but I am enough. And I don't want the I am enough phrase to be after the but, if that makes sense. That's where we use it wrong, because then it becomes smaller. It becomes a baseline. And this is what you heard me say in the clip. I don't want to just be enough, to just hit the bare minimum. And I don't want for you to want to just be enough and to just hit the bare minimum. I want for you to want to be amazing and to feel amazing about what you're doing and who you are. And I want to feel that way as well. So if it's coming after a but, where we're comparing ourselves to someone else or something else, she or he can do that or has done that or looks like that, but I am enough. I think that's kind of the wrong way to use this phrase, and that's why it makes me feel like it's a baseline. So there's the con to living by this I am enough phrase. Let's flip it. Let's take the pro side. So, ready? Here's what I am enough was originally meant to say. It was meant to say that your value and my value is inside of each of us. Our worthiness is inside of each of us. And it always is there. And we always are worthy and valuable. And that's what the enough means. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes to my episode with Jilly Johnston about worthiness in midlife, if you haven't listened to that one as well. We have inherently value, and that's where our enoughness and our worthiness comes from. So the key here is figuring out, well, do I believe that I'm worthy, that I have value, that I am enough in this situation? And so let me give you some questions that you can kind of ponder or ask yourself to see if maybe you're sitting in a position now where you're not feeling enough or you're not feeling worthy or valuable. And if you find that some of these questions really kind of hit you hard, then ask for help. Find a coach or a therapist or a friend and ask them if they will talk this through with you. And look back at last Friday's Take 5, because that was all about the difference between coaching and therapy. And so you can kind of figure out where to go for help if you want to talk some of these things through. Have you ever heard of the upper limit problem? We have a belief in our minds that there is a certain amount of success and happiness that we can have. And when we start to get close to that, boy, are we going to self-sabotage. And that might be negative self-talk. It might be not doing what we know we should do. So many things. If this is something that you find you struggle with, you're your own worst enemy, then I have a curated series of podcast episodes for you. So grab them for free at bit.ly/empowered self-talk, and you'll learn how to grow that upper limit as well as speak kindly to yourself while doing so. Okay, so questions to ponder, to ask yourself, to figure out, is this worthiness, this enoughness an issue for you that needs to really be kind of shored up and grown? Or minimized, I suppose, if we're talking about an issue. So if you're not driving and you're in a safe place to do so, maybe just kind of sit, have some stillness, and close your eyes and let this sink in and see what provokes a reaction in your body. Sometimes, even if we don't totally understand it, there's a physical reaction in our body when something resonates. Maybe in our chest or throat or face, or just tensing of the muscles, stomach. So kind of feel for that and see what your brain reacts to. Just kind of let it flow over you, and let's think about it. So, do you believe the critical or the negative comments when people make them about you or make them about your work? Now, this could be subtle. It could be something that happens in your family or with a frenemy. It could be something that happens in a professional situation where maybe the constructive criticism isn't so constructive. Or it could even be trolls. If you are experiencing that in a social media type of way, people say mean things because they're behind a keyboard and there's no penalty or harm to them for doing so. So do you believe those things? Do you immediately just shrink and tell yourself they're right? I'm terrible at this, not good enough, whatever it is. And then do you kind of sit there in that? Or maybe you feel like you take negative comments in a constructive way and you feel like you're moving forward and you're not taking it to heart too much. But do you then desperately want to prove yourself and just feel such a sense of desperation is the best word, stress and neediness to show that that comment wasn't true? That's also maybe a sign that we need to help you kind of work on your enoughness, your worthiness. Do you all the time, regularly, overly criticize your body and your appearance? Now, I'd love for you to go and listen to the OMG Teach Me episode on looking great in pictures and learn how to feel great about your pictures. That was episode 35. And at the same time, we're all going to have a bad picture sometime. And we're all going to have days where we don't feel all that awesome in terms of our appearance and our looks. But what I'm saying is, do you just almost hate a part of your body, or just always put yourself down compared to other people with your looks and appearance? That's a sign of needing to work on that enoughness. Do you have trouble imagining that you're actually going to get what you want? If I said to you, tell me the job you would want to have, the business you would want to have, the lifestyle you would want to have if money and time weren't an option, and you can think of it, but immediately you throw it out. That would never happen. I could never do that. I would never deserve that. I would never be worthy of that. There's a sign. Do you kind of live your life saying, I'll be happy when something happens, when I get the job, when I get the house, when I get the relationship, when I have the kids, when the kids grow up, whatever it is? That's still kind of a way of self-judgment where you are telling yourself, it's not okay to be happy now in my current situation, but I'm working towards a time when I'll be allowed to be happy. I want you to be happy now. So there's another one. And then do you dwell on the past? And this is the trap I fall into a lot, because I might be telling you this and teaching you and / coaching you about this on this episode. And also, nobody's perfect. I struggle with this sometimes too. So do you dwell on the past, mistakes you've made, silly things you've done? Let me tell you what. A lesson I learned in, I don't know, it's probably the past 10 years now. I do kind of klutzy things sometimes. And I don't think overall I'm a klutz. I'm not always dropping or spilling things, but I trip. I have fallen down the stairs in some very significant ways in my life. I had to sit on a pillow to take my AP exams in high school when I was a senior because I had fallen down the stairs outside of my homeroom trailer spectacularly. And then I dwell on these things, right? Why do I even remember? Well, that one was significant. But sometimes, why are we even remembering the silly thing we said or the mistake we made? Process it, move forward from it, let it go. So if we're always dwelling on things, situations where we felt uncomfortable or we made a mistake or we did something silly, believe me, everybody does something silly. And so taking it with kind of a lighter viewpoint is a sign of knowing that you're worthy, you're enough. So those questions, I want you to kind of, as I said, see if any of them resonate with you. You could even just rewind back for a minute or two, listen to them again. See if anything resonates with you, where this is something that you have been struggling with in terms of your mindset, in terms of feeling like you are enough. And I'm going to wrap this up and give you some tools to kind of build up your enoughness. So we're putting aside the use of this phrase as a comparison. So what I still can't stand, as I said before, about this phrase, I am enough, is that please check and see, am I using it when I'm comparing myself to someone else? Because comparing ourselves to someone else is never valid. Never do you know their full story. never do you know fully the challenges they've been through. And maybe what you see is a pretty packaged version that isn't even exactly how their everyday lives are, but for sure, you never see the background. We see the highlight reel. We don't see all the bloopers that were cut out and are sitting on the cutting room floor. So let's not let this be about comparison where we're trying to convince ourselves that we're just as good as they are. That's not the use of this phrase that we want. And that being said, we want to always know that we are worthy, we have value, we are enough to do whatever we want and be whoever we want. So it's not about being perfect. And that's the other reason that this enough word maybe works well here. We can't live our lives trying to be perfect. Who's going to be perfect? We're human beings, right? We're flawed. Let me ask you this. Do you love your flaws too? I could tell you some of my physical flaws for sure. I could tell you some of my attitude flaws or action flaws. Can I feel great about them? Can I love them? Can I know I'm doing the best that I can? And me, exactly the way I'm put together, is exactly the best way for me to do whatever it is I'm going to do in life. Can you? Sounds challenging, right? That's having worthiness and knowing that you have enough and are enough. Are you happy in your days and in your life right now? Now, if you're going through a traumatic period of time, then let's kind of know that not everybody is happy every day. And I always do want you to process those emotions. If you look at your life overall, are you allowing yourself to have joy about your life? Are you allowing yourself to be satisfied? Are you allowing yourself to be happy? And to know that this is the journey, and maybe you don't exactly have what you want. And I just had a conversation with my coaching group the other day about this. It's okay to want more as long as we're enjoying and loving the journey and knowing that we are at the right place at the right time, and we are exactly who we need to be to live our lives in exactly the way we want. And just taking away all the criticism of, if only I had this, if only I were that way, if only I looked like that. Maybe it's about losing weight. Let's take that as an example. If you keep some clothes in your closet that are maybe a size or two smaller, and those are your sort of aspirational clothes, we all do that, right? I mean, I think we all do that. That's fine if you are feeling good in the body you have right now and dressing yourself to feel fantastic about who you are right now. Because if we spend all our time sort of punishing ourselves about where we are and what we look like right now, then that's not worthiness. That's not enoughness. That's just kind of self-punishment. You can aspire to something as long as you know that right now you're awesome. And it's okay to get more awesome. Right now, you are enough. Now, I was reading a rom-com novel by Pippa Grant recently, and I actually posted this on my social media stories on Instagram too, because this just really hit me. So this is a light book. It was a fun story. And I spotted a quote, and I was reading it on my Kindle. So, you can see that other people have highlighted the same quote because it shows like with dotted underlines. If you read on Kindle app or on a Kindle, you know this. And so I could tell that other people had underlined this quote as well. And when I read it, I just kind of sat there and thought, wow, I've just learned a life lesson from my very light and fun rom-com novel. So here's the quote. This is a character in the story talking about some friends and family who were a little bit nutty, and they loved them and they had a great relationship no matter the nuttiness. So the quote is, "We see them for who they are, we understand why they're who they are, and we love them for who they are, no matter how hard they are some days." So isn't that a powerful thing? Are we really doing that with the relationships in our life? Are we loving them for who they are, understanding how they are who they are, and just always holding on to that? And for today's episode, I really want you to turn that around on yourself. So let me read it again, and you think about this being about you with yourself. Do you see yourself for who you are? Do you understand why you are who you are? Do you love yourself for who you are, no matter how hard the day might be or the challenge might be? You are worthy exactly as you are. That's what I am enough means. Love yourself exactly as you are. Understand that we all have flaws, and those flaws make us something way better than cardboard cutouts of each other. They make us exactly who we are, and thus we love that part of us too. I hope this helps. I hope you can now have this I am enough phrase in your head, and it can empower you to go and do whatever it is you want to do, because you're worthy, you're valuable, you're amazing, and I'm so thankful you listened. Have a great one. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. OMG, I would be so honored if you would take a moment, leave a rating, leave a review, or take a screenshot and share on your social media. Let's get this message out further into the world. Now it's time to head down to the show notes to see the resources I mentioned. We may not have learned this before, but it sure is powerful now.